Hello everyone and welcome to another very, very special episode of Watches and Whiskey. Or should I go with cognac today?
Cognac.
You see the smile on this guy's face? Big announcement. We have a new LB baby. Adrian, for the first time ever, became a father. Now, we already gave him all of our congratulations and cool gifts and so on and so forth, but we figured we'd let the world know that baby Vivian was born. How big?
Vivian Rose.
Vivian Rose.
Vivian Rose Taskin, born March 9th at 8:55 a.m. 6 pounds, 15 ounces, healthy, beautiful baby girl. My heart is full of pure joy.
Looks like just mom, thank God.
Thank God.
So the whole thing started on International Women's Day. We thought, oh my God, wouldn't it be cool if she was born on International Women's Day?
She was taking her time coming out.
And yeah, she was taking her time, so she wasn't born until March 9th. But Adrian, I asked Adrian what he wants to drink. He said, let's do a little bit of cognac today. So this is probably my favorite go-to when it comes to cognac, and that would be the Remy Martin XO.
And shout out to my wife, my beautiful wife Jessica. She's an absolute soldier, and I'm just happy that men don't have to go through this process because, oh my God, what an experience that was.
Yeah, we're not going to get into the whole watching part and what you experience as a man watching that take place.
But I watched it all.
I want to drink to the fact that let this baby grow up healthy and happy.
Pops a drink?
Dad, you want to drink? Grandpa.
I'm going to jump into the...
Well, you need to bring a glass then. Grandfather for the first time, so congratulations to him too. He was crying like a little girl. Adrian was crying like a little girl. I got a video from the hospital. I was crying like everybody was going. The women were all calm. We were all crying like little girls.
Yeah, I finally don't have the worst hairline on Watches and Whiskey.
Oh, that's right. Check out this hairline. Oh, by the way, this is what you guys have looked to. This is what Adrian has to look forward to. By the way, in the near future.
Hey, bald is beautiful. Okay.
Today's watches and cognac.
Yes.
Yes, but you may leave now. Thank you. Appreciate the cameo. Grandpa, everybody.
Bye.
Anyway, we got an exciting one for you guys today. Ooh, I forgot what that tastes like. That's so good.
That's good. That's some funky tasting whiskey.
Yeah, right? So watches and cognac, I guess. We got an exciting one for you today, guys. I got a good challenge that came in from Yoshi from Miami. We're going to get into that in a minute. We're going to discuss that $4 million watch that you guys have been asking about when we took our trip to New York. What we bought, obviously, and then we're going to do alternatives, right? So a lot of you guys always ask about, hey, look, I really like this watch, but it's out of my price range. What are some of my alternatives? So
probably top 5 question.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah. That and what shampoo Adrian uses, but that's top 5.
Head and Shoulders.
Head and Shoulders.
You know what I'm saying?
Anyway, and then some predictions, even though we don't have a crystal ball. I always say I don't have a crystal ball. And we're actually going to react.
What kind of predictions? For the watch market?
Values, where you see some watches going, and that's more of a question for you, really. And last but not least, we're going to appraise some celebrity watches. Like what are they really worth, right? So because there's a lot of buzz out there. The best articles out there, like, you know, especially TMZ or somebody else, oh, such and such $4 million watch, and we're looking at it like that is just not a $4 million watch. It's just no, you know. So.
And I've also seen the opposite, where they appraise and I'm like, wait, that's actually a lot more money than that.
Let's quickly go. Now, this is a healthy mix here. Some of the stuff that we bought and some of the stuff that we're going to compare as an alternative, because you may have seen, for example, the helicopter and some of the Rolexes that are on here that are pretty much a revolving door with Rolexes. I think the last Rolexes we showed you are long gone and twice over. But I'm going to jump in and talk about some weird stuff that I bought. And weird in today's standards because as I bought them, Adrian said, what the hell did you buy, Roman? And with weird, I mean older Roger Dubuis, right? Start with this beautiful annual calendar. And next to it, right off the bat, I'm going to put this Perpetual calendar. I'm sure you guys have noticed there's a lot of collectors out there collecting some of the older Roger Dubuis. This is before they tried to sort of undo that whole mess they had with the distributor for North and South America, going back about 20 years, where the guy, rather than distributing the watches among stores like he's supposed to be doing, just around the time internet was starting, he was just wholesaling them 25, 28, 30 cents on a dollar, dumping them out in the market and lowering the brand, which is a shame. After that, in order to recover, Roger Dubuis was sporadically putting out models such as these at a lower price, like this SAW Tourbillon, which retail was $86,000 today. You know, you can pick one up for around 20, maybe even less. And finally, they have rebounded with some of their newer stuff that I've showed you guys in the past.
The Pirelli stuff is sick.
And yeah, absolutely.
Sick watch.
And then collectors are finally realizing that, look, a Perpetual calendar, especially some of the retrograde stuff that they made, right? The Sympathy, the Much Mores, which is what this is. Also, this GMT right here. They're starting to recognize the collectability of these because back then, if you guys remember, everything was a limited edition of 28. 1 of 28, 2 of 28, 88, 88 was like the max that they did. So there's not a whole lot of them out there, and collectors are quickly starting to realize that, hey, these things are indeed collectible. Pay attention to some of the older Roger Dubuis. You're going to see them going up and up and up and up, because at the end of the day, Roger Dubuis is a hell of a company from a horological perspective, and their older stuff was only made in editions of 28. Maybe back then it sounded gimmicky, but right now, if you think about it,
what was the whole 28 number about?
They were always that exclusive company. They always wanted to make very little pieces. I mean, if you had to compare old Roger Dubuis in those days, you're probably going to compare that to that of Vacheron today, some of the other independents today, where they really make not a whole lot of watches. But beyond that, been on a Lange kick too as well. You guys have seen some Langes. This is the most favorite Lange I picked up. This is the Grande Lange 1. And it's a favorite of mine going back a while because of its size. Back when this came out, they didn't make very many of them, and majority of the other Langes were 38 millimeters, which were too small. It was in the era where the clunky watches were coming up, you know, your big offshores and things like that.
Such a good looking watch.
It's just, I mean, the combo of rose gold and black, I've said it on multiple watches, it's just an absolutely gorgeous watch, and it sits really well on the wrist. Speaking of wrist, let's
I think I've had
talk about what's on our wrist before I put this on, and I'll let you go first, because I'm sure that was the best buy of the. This is his Grail watch.
Well, one of my Grail watches, RM55 Bubba Watson, in white.
Talk about the market on that for a second.
Let's just say it's over 340,000.
Exactly, it's absolutely insane. It has tripled in price.
Tripled.
More than tripled.
More than tripled.
More than
Way
tripled.
more than tripled.
The cheapest Bubba Watson we ever owned was probably around 70 grand, I would say.
More, less.
65?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's more than triple.
It's incredible.
What I have is, when I bought it, was one of those things where Adrian's like, what the hell is that?
Is that factory?
It's yes, this is indeed factory. This is actually a super rare watch. This was made for the Omani market, for the Sultan of Oman. This one does not have a logo. They didn't logo these, and this is a quartz Rolex. This is an Oysterquartz, which historically...
It's a quartz watch?
Yeah, this is an Oysterquartz.
The
bracelet is that giveaway. But with that said, the rarity of the watch is in the dollar. It's a honeycomb dollar, as they call it, and the baguette bezel. This is all factory. This is how it came in the watch. There's probably, if I had to guess, I don't know. I don't even think Rolex knows. There's probably maybe 5 of these in the world, maybe 10, especially in the Oyster Quartz.
But if you had to guess, but you don't know.
If I had to guess, it's less than 10, because this is an Oyster Quartz, right? Majority of the stuff was reserved for fully mechanical watches, and oftentimes they didn't dress up Oyster Quartzes in such a manner. With that said, you know, I told you guys about Oyster Quartzes. They don't really bring a whole lot of value, right? They don't really fetch any buku dollars, and they should be, because not a lot of them were destroyed, right? Because the watch would stop working, and a lot of the steel ones were just simply thrown out because they were cheap enough.
Or the stories that my dad used to say.
The stories.
My dad used to have a pawn shop in Atlantic City in the 80s. And he told me how many Rolexes he melted for gold.
He literally threw them on a scale, took a hammer to him, put the movement out, and melted them. It's insanity. So I know you guys are going to wonder price on this watch, right? If a nice condition, complete, or maybe not even complete, but a nice condition working Oyster Quartz today on the market, you can pick up under $20,000. This is a watch that trades in upwards of $150,000 just because of that dial and that bezel, or that combination thereof. Again, knowledge is king, right?
If you don't know, now you know.
Yeah, that one. But if you have the knowledge, you can make more money in any business, regardless whether it's the watch business or anything else. So why did I decide to get what's on my wrist? Is because I wanted to throw this on my wrist, because this just sits. It just sits perfect. It just sits perfect on the wrist. Of course, this thing has a tag on, but let me give this a try real quick. Oh, by the way, you know what I'm working on?
Do tell.
I'm working on a Zeitwerk striking time minute repeater. That would be a Grail watch.
What are you working on? Does that actually exist?
Oh yeah.
For real?
I'm working on buying one.
Wow.
It retails for $475,000. I'm not going to disclose what I'm trying to buy for. Look at that. That's just a thing of beauty. I'm gonna kick this one around for a minute. What else?
I think I've spoke more about Langes in the past 2 weeks than I have in the past 10 years.
What the f is this? Who put this here? Nick?
Got it! What is that?
Remember what I had on my Instagram story?
A G-Shock?
It's a G-Shock and a Royal OK. So I don't know if you guys missed my Instagram story. How did that sneak in there, by the way?
Yo, hold up. From 4.
I mean, so if you guys watch my Instagram story, Nick comes up, he's like, "Yo, check out this
You're
Royal
moving your
Oak."
wrist quickly,
and from far, it looks
Yeah.
like a Royal Oak. And then I'm like, "What the hell is this?" I asked if I can drop it off the second floor mezzanine, but wait. I tried to drop it off the second floor mezzanine. Nick got upset. Apparently, you can take this. So this is, what is this again, Nick?
So it's a G-Shock, and pretty much the bezel and then the case, or the bezel and the strap they're all one piece, and you take the core out, and then you put it into the case.
Okay, now I'm definitely dropping off the second. Anyway, you can have that back. But what else did you buy?
Somebody took their time to like manufacture that case and bracelet.
So,
Listen, for $200 total, that you got yourself a Royal Oak case at Casio.
yeah.
What else do I got?
Yeah, what else did you buy?
Not a lot on this table of what I bought, but let's see what we have here. This is a great pickup that I wanted to talk about. Offshore 26170 Ti. So it's the last generation offshores with the non-ceramic buttons. This is titanium, and I picked this one up because I think the dial is the best dial they made on a 26170.
If you compare it to today's offshores, I think that dial
The best.
is amazing.
The
The
best.
darker numbers against the darker gray.
Yep.
You know why? You know why I like that watch? Because it's the dial color is reminiscent to me of that of tantalum watches.
Well, I also love the fact that it's titanium, extremely light and comfortable.
It is.
which
It is light
I'm
and
a big
comfortable.
titanium guy.
I know you picked up about 40 freaking Rolexes
Yes.
this week. We didn't
A
decide
lot
to bring
of
them out
are
because it's more of the
gone,
same
a lot
stuff.
of them.
Rose gold. I call these oldies but goodies, right? Again, not to get into details on every single one of them, but rose gold dressy / sporty watches. That's what these are. The IWC, the 5001, is an absolute classic. It always has been. All right, the 8-day power reserve, whether it's in steel, whether it's in rose gold, I think this is a beautiful combination.
Call that bang for your buck.
Again, a watch that sells in the low teens from a major company, right? This Vacheron, pricey in the retail, right? This retrograde is I think 43.8 retail, somewhere around there, mid 40s, right? Again, sells for that around that half price mark. Again, from a company part of the Holy Trinity, longest running company, blah 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 blah. Duometry, I think, is still a horological wonder. It came out about 5-6 years ago,
Probably more.
till this day, I'm still impressed with this. We had one in white gold; it lasted a day. Picked up a rose gold one just because, again, they're not that easy to come by. We can always order some of these things, some of the newer models and things like that, but what happens, the discount is not there. So whenever I get a chance to pick up some deals on gold watches, which are a deal, especially rose gold, because rose gold is still hot, right? Especially when it comes to dressier watches. On Rolex, I feel like yellow gold still wins, but when other pieces, rose gold is still sort of in the lead. So hence the World Time Gerard Paragon. I mean, always a stupid deal. It's a gold watch you pick up in low to mid-teens. Calibre, right? Cartier, classic company, nice large size watch. Again, / dressy / sporty. Always works. So I'm always on the lookout to pick up deals like this. With that said, I picked up an oldie but a goodie. Speaking of IWC, the GST. Now, part of my personal collection, I own a GST with this particular dial chrono, complete with box and papers, and I also own the Perpetual because back in the day they were cheap. And I think that this Day-Date, it's a Day-Date basically, right? Chrono. I absolutely love this watch, and the fact that this is a split-second chronograph, and the fact that you can pick this up around $7,000-8,000.
Salmon dial.
Salmon dial goes to him.
Love salmon
Again,
dials.
makes this always a pickup in my book whenever I come on. There's not a whole lot of them out there. They used
Very
to
rare.
like 10-15 years ago, they used to rain these, but there's a lot of them out there. They're not that rare, but lately you just haven't seen them in the market. Like, people, I think, are starting to recognize that this is certainly a classic that's going to go down in history. What else? And speaking of classics going down in history, Golden Bridge. Now, not the prettiest combo. I picked this up on a strap in platinum, and I also picked it up in white gold on a bracelet. This is probably not the most beautiful combo because of the diamonds, and the bracelet sort of looks awkward on this particular design. In fact, I should have brought the one on the strap because I feel like this takes attention away from this, and the idea is to show, again, the bridge. Probably from Quorum, besides Admiral Cup, the second most iconic model as far as I'm concerned. What else is here? Oh, this guy. Talk about bang for your dollar. How many APs out there today,
Love it.
good-looking APs, can you pick up for under $20,000?
This is for sure a sleeper. If somebody's looking for a dressy watch, especially from a brand like Audemars
And
Piguet,
again,
this is a win. And it looks great too.
Do you think this is dressy or do you think this is sporty?
What is your definition of dressy versus sporty?
Like
Like when somebody says dressy watch to me, leather strap immediately.
Yes, but also the certain, like for example,
Well,
this,
what makes
like this
this-
design
Yeah,
here
yeah.
is a lot more dressier than this one. This
Why?
can be, plus size-wise, this
Why?
is a big watch.
Well, what makes it sporty?
I just think the overall design, the size and the overall
Because
design
it's
and the
oval,
aesthetic
not
of the watch.
circle, makes it sporty.
You
Why are you the way that you are?
know what? Let's drink. All right, skip that question. Next question. All right, you got me there. All right, so this is another one that
I'm
This is not
parched.
Excuse me. My apologies. This is another one that Adrian picked up, and the reason I wanted that on the show is
Which one is that, Roman?
the Day-Date chocolate. And the reason I wanted to quickly show that is because dial-wise combination, chocolate dial on a rose gold watch outside of the black dial is just amazing. Again, only in certain watches. That new Oyster Flex that you said is missing that Anna stole, that has chocolate and black subdials, so that to me takes it to a whole new level. But there's some other watches on here. We're not going to get into too many details and spend the entire episode on that, except for one, and that's this guy. I told you guys about the significance of the Vacheron Constantin Royal Eagle in the past. The Vacheron Constantin Royal Eagle is Vacheron's very, very first sports luxury watch, right? And this thing has been a sleeper forever, right? The ones on the bracelets, the one on the strap. This was actually a limited edition that they made. And what I love about this particular one is the fact that number one, this is their first sports watch, and two, because this is a limited edition, this is the kind of stuff you look for when you're looking for those sleepers. You guys always ask those questions. Hey, what do I look for? Well, here's the fact that it's the first sports watch from Vacheron. Here's the fact that this watch was always a dog, right? Nobody really liked them, right? Which means they didn't make many of them. And now they're done. And now they're done with. There's no more. There's no more. They only have the overseas models at this point. And when you go and pick up a limited edition one of these, you know that down the line this is going to be that. And at the end of the day, I told you guys, buy what you like first and foremost. This is a beautiful watch.
Sick dial.
The dial is ridiculous. The strap to match is ridiculous. I mean, this is just a beautiful watch. Again, from the oldest running company in the world when it comes to horology, and it's just a deal. I mean, I like the watch. Anyway, let's talk about the next topic, and that is the challenge that came through from Yoshi that I discussed earlier. Roman, thank you for time to answer our questions. I know I appreciate it, and I'm sure all of you viewers appreciate the time you guys dedicate to making these awesome videos. Thank you. Before I gave you the challenge, I wanted to preface it with a question. I know you always say buy what you love first and foremost, and I totally agree. However, there are some grail watches of mine that are just too expensive for me right now. For example, Patek 5131G or Rolex Smurf. So I'm considering getting a watch that will scratch the itch for a reasonable price. The 5131G alternative would be a Mont Blanc 4880 Orbis. And the Smurf alternative would be the Tudor Black Bay with a blue dial. What do you think about this approach? Will these watches actually scratch that itch, or should I just continue saving until I can get the true grails? And here's the challenge. What are some extremely hot and expensive watches today that people are constantly looking for but maybe can't get for reasons such as supply or exorbitant prices? And what watch would you recommend as a cheaper alternative that scratches the itch? I'm going to discuss the scratch the itch part, and I'm going to let Adrian do some comparison for you guys. Scratching the itch part, to me, is like lying to yourself. If you're going to want something, be it a Smurf, be it a 5131G, or any other watch out there, that itch will never go away. Will you get a temporary satisfaction from having a watch like a Tudor or a Mont Blanc, both great watches, by the way? Absolutely. It will scratch the itch, but that's all it's going to do. It will never stop it. It's like when you got dry skin, you put on some lotion, the ocean dries out, your skin itches again.
That's a very good one.
So that never goes away, right? Is there anything wrong with doing it? Absolutely not. I told you before, buy what you like first and foremost, but within the means that you can afford. And if at the moment all you can afford is a Tudor Black Bay, by all means go out and get it, enjoy it, and hopefully the time will come where you can afford the other grail pieces. And I'll tell you one more thing before I let Adrian talk. Once you do get those grail pieces, the itch still doesn't stop, because once you achieve those, you're going to want bigger and better pieces. So that, unfortunately, is the evil circle that we're in, so to speak. So me and Adrian went down to the safe, and we kind of managed to line some things up. So I'm going to start with the helicopter.
We'll start with the helicopter. So I actually had a call the other day from a buddy of mine that said he wanted to buy a sporty tourbillon, right, from AP.
That doesn't break the bank.
That relatively doesn't break the bank. So from AP or Hublot, he mentioned. So I think this is a perfect comparison here. So I was like, listen, man. I was like, if you're going to get into the offshore tourbillon or even Royal Oak tourbillon from AP, you're going to be at a very, very high, at least $100,000.
It's definitely 100 plus.
100 plus, exactly. So here's a great example. We have a Hublot here, pre-owned. It's a monopusher tourbillon. Skeleton in rose gold versus what we have here, as we call the novelty helicopter. This is a $50,000 watch, and this is a $500,000 watch. Essentially, they do the same thing, right? Rose gold, sporty, strap, tourbillon.
Limited edition.
So yeah, that's always a thing. It's like I want a lot of times people say they want. I'm saving up for a Richard Mille. What can I get that's lower than a Richard Mille?
Oh, I got one.
What?
Big bang for your dollar.
I see what you did there.
You see what I did there?
Big bang for your buck. And here's all I also get, because a lot of people obviously love gold, and I always say if you can't afford the gold, always go with the two-tone. Because here we have two watches here. We have a current or last generation 116618.
I don't know how you remember those numbers. I've been in business 20 years. I still can't remember reference numbers. He just spits them out.
Gold sub blue for $35,000, when you can ideally get the same look for a nice 16613, which is a pre-ceramic one in gold through the buckle, for $10,000, right? So it's a third of the price. So that's always a good alternative.
And the best part about it is if you're going like that, if you're taking that approach with Rolexes, from a mile away, people are still going to know you have a Rolex on your wrist. And the fact that it's two-tone, it shows a little bit of gold, it now screams that expensive Rolex.
Exactly. The other ones that I think we picked out was, although this is not the best speedy example, but
it's the only one we have left.
It's the only one we have right now because they're selling great. Rolex Daytona, #1 watch on the market. Can't afford a Rolex Daytona? Buy a Speedy. I think it is. I'm not going to compare and contrast the two watches, but looks-wise and for functionality purposes, it kind of saves.
How about Iconic?
Iconic as well.
The Omega Speedy is just as iconic as Daytona. They just did a better job, right, in terms of being more popular. But if you ask me, if you put the two side by side, I would have a hard time, taking aside market prices and the fact that this is the more selling watch, I would have a hard time deciding which watch is more iconic, the watch that went to the moon or the famous Daytona. So, I don't know, I don't know the answer to that question. I actually brought the Breguet, if you want to pop that one on here. So if you want to talk about iconic chronographs, you can pick up an iconic chronograph, again, from an iconic brand such as Breguet, some of the older ones like the Type 20, the Type 21, or the Era Novels. You can pick those things up around $5,000 and still have a pretty kick-ass chronograph on your wrist. Here, there's another one here, right?
If you want to compare the bracelets.
Here's another one here. So here, what is this trade for?
This trades for $22,000.
$22,000. So here's that Breguet, this Breguet. These also could be great alternatives to any popular chronographs, be it an offshore, a Royal Oak, and it doesn't have to break the bank. And at the end of the day, Breguet is a big name. Breguet is a huge name. Would I go as far as saying that Breguet is a bigger name than AP based on some of the innovations that Breguet made, such as the Tourbillon? Absolutely. They go back further than AP. But again, AP is iconic on its own. It's also over 150 years old. They certainly do have some horological inventions under their belt. But the point of the matter is there's plenty of affordable chronographs out there that you can sort of not just scratch the itch, but actually get a great watch at a quarter of the price. What's with the yellow watches?
So the yellow watches, a lot of people like these colorful APs in yellow. There's also a few other brands that make colorful watches to match their car or match their outfit. And if they can't afford this $30,000 watch, this is a great substitute. We got a yellow Panerai Ferrari. Look at that. It pretty much looks identical to the AP.
When it first came out, the original retail on it was, I'm going to say, somewhere around $8,500. It sold for like $13,000, $15,000. The yellow one, and the red one's the same. And of course, Ferrari is the kiss of death, and Panerai died with that.
Richard Mille just brand with Ferrari.
We're going to talk about that on the next episode. Actually, don't spoil it. Nick put that on the schedule. He asked me about it. I was like, I got plenty to say about that.
So do I.
So I guess the point of these guys is that, look, if you want to go for a color, especially, this is probably one of the most popular colorful watches out there today. They come in a bunch of different colors and they trade through the roof. But if you wanted a yellow watch, again, from a good brand, Panerai, Yoshi, not brands that are past or gone, they're still around, they're still kicking. And again, this is under $5,000. This is around that $5,000 price range. You don't have to break the bank and still have a good-looking watch and achieve what you wanted to achieve with the colors, I feel like. Let's see, what else do we have here? As far as... I wanted to show this guy. And the reason I wanted to show this guy is because this is sold to a YouTube fan. Shout out to Hank, right? He's been hunting for this watch, and I found a smoking deal. And speaking of smoking deals, around that $10,000, $11,000 price range, you get a sporty Perpetual calendar that's also a diver, which is, you don't see a lot of Perpetual divers out there. And Ulysses did it best. I think this is one of my favorite watches from back in the day from Ulysses because of the color of the dial and the bezel. I think it's ahead of its time. I think if they came out with a watch such as this, utilizing the materials they did on the dial and the bezel, I think it would do extremely well till this day. It just pops so well. We talked about alternatives, and I was wearing this Lange. Now, obviously, this is a bit more expensive. This Lange trades in the high 20s. But let's say you wanted a German manufacturer watch. Take advantage of some of the older Glashüttes, right? Because Glashütte original, right? Same village. Probably the same watchmakers that go into making watches for Glashütte. Now, this is an older model. This model is at least 15 years old. This is Senator? I think it's the Senator.
It's got to be older than 15 years old.
Yeah. Now, this is an older model, right? And it's made out of gold. It's got a black dial. It's from the same village where the other watches are made. I guarantee you some of those watchmakers crisscross paths somewhere between Lange and Glashütte. And guess what? This is a watch that sells under $10,000. So there's plenty of alternatives. It all depends on what you're looking for as an alternative. If you're looking for a particular look, yes. If you got color combinations, you got dial combinations. If you're looking for a particular watchmaker or a region or whatever it might be, there's plenty of options out there. The watches don't necessarily have to look similar. Yeah. In this case, it was functionality you mentioned. And in this case, it was talking about full gold versus not full gold. We talked about chronographs. We talked about a lot of things. So there's plenty of alternatives out there if you want to find something to scratch that itch, as Yoshi said.
There are definitely a lot of alternatives out there. However, I'm not an alternative guy. If I want something, I want that thing and only nothing else.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Going to change that.
I understand, but let me ask you a question. Right now, you own a few Rolexes, right? And you don't own $100,000 Rolexes. You own, you have your GMT, you have a couple of President, a couple other things. But with that said, yes, you may want. Speaking of which, this guy, so pretty. You may want an iced out Daytona such as this one, but you're not in a position to buy a $100,000 Daytona yet. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with continue wanting it, but in the interim, you are buying some watches along the way. But buying some watches along the way also gives you an opportunity to do what? To trade up later. Yeah. So if you're parking money in some of these watches and you buy them right, even if let's say you lose 20% at the end of the day, you still have an X amount of money parked there that potentially are going to be that money that's going to go towards the next watch. So, Yoshi, I hope we met your challenge and answered your question. Great question. Thank you for the submission. Discussing the $4 million watch. A few weeks ago, Adrian and I went to New York City to do some buying, most importantly to see our friend about a $3.5 million Richard Mille. I know some of you guys had some questions about the watch. Right off the bat, I'm going to disappoint you. We're not going to discuss whether the watch was bought or sold for privacy reasons, and I hope you guys understand that. But what we're going to do is we're going to pick two watches that fetch over $2 million and discuss why the watches get to that price point. Would you like a crack at that one, Adrian? While I have a sip of this cognac.
There's
pick a watch.
Pick a watch. I'll pick a Sky Moon Tourbillon, for example.
The newer or the older?
Either or.
We'll go with the newer.
Let's go with the newer. Don't know exactly what the retail price is. I don't think too many people do know what it is with the Swiss franc conversion, yada yada yada.
When the new ones came out, there were 1.3.
I think it was 1.2 or something.
1.3,
then
250.
Yeah, so that's now a $4. The blue one is now a $4 million watch. 6002G we're talking about.
Blue dial.
Blue dial.
Black dial. 3.5.
If not more.
Let me ask you this: would you say that part of the reason of these price increases, first and foremost, is timing in the market? Agree with that?
100%.
At the time they came out, they did what every other Sky Moon Tourbillon done. Mind you, the original Sky Moon Tourbillons at that time were still floating, around $1 million, a little bit under.
Sub $1 million.
Sub $1 million, right? So it's all timing. Now we're in a hot market, obviously. The fact that this is an application watch obviously has a lot to do with it. Any application watch from Patek, you're going to be paying way over list. Let's say you bought that watch back then at $1,450,000. What do you do if you have the ability just to sit on it? How do you find out the right time, and how do you make that market progress? Because with watches such as that, you can make the market move.
Yes and no. I mean, it's impossible to, your whole crystal ball theory, it's impossible to predict where things are going to be in the future. And from the time that watch was $1.6 million to now it's $3.5 million, I wonder how many times you could have turned that money over versus sitting on it, right?
Financially, no doubt, absolutely financially makes sense to sell it right there and then continue the money turning.
The money turned more. It is absolutely impossible to tell because there's a lot of pieces I would have held on to, we would have held on to. But
like that,
you can't predict these things. It's just it comes down to there just aren't any on the market, and whoever has it has the power to ask whatever the hell they want, and the next person who's buying it, who has
you just said
boatload of money, is willing to pay that.
You just said that.
That's just all it comes down to.
And the key there is that we do know of some of these watches in the market who has them because you can count them on one hand, right? And the people that actually have them are the ones that are able to do two things: have a big turnover of things that they're regularly selling. bigger pieces, but at the same time hold on and wait for the call on that watch, because the way that watch is ever sold is when you actually physically owned it. Anytime
it's
in
very
the last
hard to
in the
broker
last 20
something
years
like
I've been doing this, anytime I tried,
Yep.
I flipped a few big watches over. Don't get me wrong. Somebody called me on something, I went, I found it, I sold it. But 9 out of 10 times these deals do not work out unless you physically buy the watch,
Yeah,
because
very
word
tough.
spreads and word spreads quickly. Give you an example. Was it a month ago? I get a call from a dealer on a 5208 Patek. And
Grail.
and then I get another call on the 5208 Patek. I know of a 5208 Patek. Watch was offered to me out of, not going to discuss where. The guy wanted $820,000. At the time I felt, and this was maybe 6 months ago, at the time I felt that a good stock price for the watch was $750 to $800 max. $820 was pushing it, because I figured if I buy for $820 at the time, I maybe would be able to sell it for $850, $840, and it's not worth the investment, right? Because I wasn't flipping it, I was trying to stock it. And I told the guy that was selling the watch, I said, let's decide. I said, are we buyers on that watch at $850 for stock? Considering there's a client out there for it. He's like, yes, let's do it. Of course, I called the guy up, and what happened? The market starts buzzing. Everybody starts looking for the watch. I called the guy up. He goes, I want $950.
They start inflating their own price.
Exactly. I want $950. I said, you're nuts. You offered this watch to me. I know it's the same watch for $820. I said, I'm willing to go up to $850. He comes back at $900. I can call him back a couple of days later. I talked to the other guy. I said, I'm not stocking this thing at $900. It's just not worth it. $850 is max. I call him back. I sold the watch. He didn't. He put the watch away. Right? And the reason he put the watch away is because he wanted that client to come to him, that end user.
Yeah,
because
he
if I'm
figured he's gonna
if
make
I'm
his
willing
way
to
to him.
pay, if I'm willing to pay $850, he knows I'm not selling this watch for $900. I'm at least making 10%, so I'm probably selling it for $930. So why is he going to leave $130,000 on the table? And that's really what it comes down to. That's why buying these big pieces doesn't always pan out. Now, when you're holding these pieces, like the Skyline Tourbillon, like our friend in Asia who has all of them, right? He can afford to hold all of them. He can ask whatever price he wants.
Yep.
Because a person that's buying those kind of pieces is somebody that an extra $500,000 is not going to make him or break him. This is what they want. They want it yesterday, and I don't care what they have to
Yep.
pay. And the only other way is to get it from Patek, and Patek doesn't approve everybody. Or maybe they do approve you, and maybe he does get approved by Patek. And
But you
maybe-
got to buy this, that, and that along.
But
with
even if he did, then they'll tell you, okay, you got to wait 2.5 years.
Yeah, he doesn't want to wait. Yeah,
Nobody wants to
Nobody
wait.
wants to wait.
Right, and
they
that's-
want what they want, and they want it now.
So the bottom line is that look, there's a certain precedent that's set by the sale of the previous Skyline Tourbillon, right? And then you know that right out of the gate, it's always over list because nobody gets a discount on that watch, and you have to wait a couple of years. And then it goes from hand to hand, and whoever happens to have that on the market, they name their own price. So if the watch exchange hands between 3 dealers, and nobody out there is reselling these watches and making them less 10%. The risk is not worth the reward. Often there's logistics, going overseas, trusting somebody to wire them $1.5 million. So everybody's, if 3-4 hands exchange hands, and every time it's at least 10%, if not more, that's how these watches climb up to where they are.
Not to mention, there's a lot of dealers I know out there that they'll know of an end user with the watch. They don't own the watch, but it's funny, and it comes from the same region. They'll post it on Chrono24 for some crazy number. Then the client goes back and he's like, "Oh, but the watch is this much on Chrono24. I'm not going to sell. This just happened to me with an RM. You know, I offered $500,000 for the watch. The guy goes back to me. He goes, "Oh, but it's on Chrono24 for $685." I was like, good luck selling it for $685. You know what I mean? So that's what happens. And the next guy who's looking to sell it.
Another reason you
Yeah.
sometimes get a really, really high price is, let's say I have a client whom I sold a watch. Let's say that same client was sold a watch to for $1,650,000, right? Guys of a very large caliber, let's just call him that, right? Money-wise, financially wise. Let's just say that $1.5 million or $1,650,000 didn't put a dent in his wallet, right? And I'm saying to myself, what do I go back and offer this guy in order for him to actually want to sell that watch, right? That happens too. We go back to clients to ask them to sell the watches. In order for them to sell that watch, we have to usually offer them a ridiculous profit, right? So if I sold that Skyline Tourbillon and I go back to the guy, forget that the market price today is $4 million, right? Let's say it was still a year ago or 2.5 years ago where the market wasn't quite as high. If I go back to, I have a client that says, I don't care what it is, I don't care how much you pay, and I go back to my client because he's the only one that actually has it that may consider selling it. Guy that paid $1,650,000 offering $1,750,000 is going to laugh at me. But if I came at him and said, listen, how about $2.2 million for the watch you just bought 6 months ago? I don't care how rich you are, you're going to consider. Again,
So basically what you're saying, to wrap all this up, is that these watches climb at these prices because the end user doesn't have a choice but to pay these prices.
more or less,
They want what they
when
want.
you're dealing with pieces over $2 million, it's
If the Sapphire in question that we had, there was 10 pieces made. Client wants that watch. They're not going to find it.
5. pieces made.
Some are 5, some are 10,
Yeah.
some are piece unique.
And that's why that crystal tourbillon is a name your price watch, because whoever has it is going to name their price. So the question goes back to: is it really worth $4 million? Is the Skyman tourbillon really worth $4 million? Are any of these watches worth that kind of money?
Yes, they are. Yes,
they are, because that's what somebody had paid for them, and
Yep.
they're still, as long as there's people out there willing to pay that kind of money for those watches, that's their price. But at the end of the day, still not an investment, but an expensive toy, as I always say.
Yeah.
A ballpark price for a watch in 2022 for some of the pieces purchased this week. I'm going to give you a piece. I'm going to have you give a prediction.
I don't really see any movers or shakers besides
Daytona.
one piece.
I mean, that's going to be the number one question.
See, the beautiful thing with Rolex, other than like a Rainbow Daytona or something special like that, is that they move at a healthy pace up, right? They don't change at a huge percentage per month. You're going to see month to month to month, they're going to go up. But there's a lot of them, so they're not going to move at such a rapid pace like this will.
Do you think we have stabilized at the price? What is it? What's the black dial brand new today? 30,000, white dial 33,000?
No, I don't think we've stabilized yet.
You think there's still room to grow?
I still think there's room to grow.
What do you think?
Well, I think there's.
What do you think Daytona's ceiling?
First of all, Daytona is actually a perfect example that we're talking about here, because a Daytona is a cheap watch. This is a $13,000 retail watch. This could easily be a $25,000 retail watch.
No, Eric explained to us why they don't do that.
But think about it. Think about it. Why is a Royal Oak Chrono $25,000 or $26,000, whatever it is, damn near $30,000? Why can't this be? Is this worse than AP? It's not.
It's not.
Right? So there is a lot of room for this to grow.
Because of its original low retail prices.
Yeah.
Let me ask you
well,
a
not
question.
to mention, well,
give me a ceiling price on a Daytona.
I wanted to follow my thought with, I heard that they might be raising retails.
But how much are they going to raise it?
Doesn't matter.
They're going to raise it to 16, 17?
They're not going to raise it to 16, but even if they raise it $1,000, $1,200, then that's the starting point. People pay taxes on these watches and so on and so forth. The prediction is this. I don't have a prediction. The best way to predict these things is to watch CNBC or Bloomberg and see where the market is, because there is nothing better of a predictor in the watch market as the stock market and the overall economy.
And I think overall economy, and people asking, well, is it directly related to the stock market prices? No, it's directly related to the mood. If you're someone who is well off and buys these expensive toys, the odds are you have your money vested. It's not sitting under a pillow in a cash. It's not sitting in a bag under a pillow cash, right?
There's free money out there.
That money is out there invested mostly across real estate, stock market, mutual funds, precious metals, some crypto now, and things of that nature.
But if you even look at global emerging markets overseas, they're just absolutely booming.
Absolutely. So now you're a guy. Now you're a guy that's somewhat well off that can afford these toys on whichever level, be it $10,000 or $500,000. You wake up in the morning and you look at your crypto wallet or your stock portfolio and you see that, fuck, I just made $200,000. You know what? I'm going to treat myself to a watch. Is it going to matter to you that you're going to pay $35,000 for Daytona or $28,000 for Daytona? It's not. It's the overall.
When your cost is $4.
I'm gonna take some predictions and I'm gonna predict on this guy, right? And this is why I kind of brought it, to be honest with you. So you've seen this in a different version. I think I showed it earlier on my Instagram with has the sapphires. The ruby one's actually a little bit more rare. They made a bit less of them, supposedly. Again, it's all here. So I told you guys before, if anybody tells you they know how many they made, it's bullshit. Looking at some of the diamond Daytonas, looking at the TBR, which is $200,000 at this point, right? The Daytona with the baguettes and the diamond dollar, right?
Platinum Daytona.
The platinum Daytona. Look at the platinum Daytona just with the diamond markers. Because of the rainbow Daytona, I think you're going to start seeing some of the other stuff catch up. There's a reason why. There's a reason why this guy is $150,000, right? Diamond encrusted watches are making huge waves, and we have to thank the rainbow Daytona for that.
Thank you. You're giving my rainbow Daytona,
which I hate. I'll take the TBR all day over it, by the way. With that said, my prediction is you're going to see some of these seemingly gaudy and ugly, most people will say, that I would never wear watches, go up in value even more tremendously riding on the back of that rainbow Daytona, simply because they just don't make a whole lot of them. Because not a whole lot of guys are going to want to put that watch on, right? I like diamond watches. I'll wear diamond watches, but most guys won't, and that's just the truth.
It's an art piece.
Exactly.
That's what it is. It's just what it breaks down.
So I'm gonna take a prediction on take major brands.
Yeah.
Specifically Rolex, I'm gonna go with. I think you're gonna see the TBR go through the roof. I think you're gonna see the rainbow Daytona continue to climb. And here's the thing. One thing I will tell you is that And I kept asking you, what do you think the ceiling for the Daytona is? What do you think the ceiling is for the Daytona is? What do you think the ceiling is for the Daytona stainless steel? Let's say over the next 5 years, 3 years. It cannot be a $60,000 watch.
No, I don't.
Do you think the ceiling will? They'll sort of max out at that 35 to 40?
I think 35 is about right.
Guess what's going to happen the minute Rolex sees that? Same with the Daytona
What?
Rainbow. They're going to stop
Discontinue?
production and they're going to make a new one.
Let's continue it.
And that's going to make it go through the roof even further.
Yeah.
And that's what a smart company
Yeah,
does.
I don't see.
Like the 5711, what they did with it. Once the 57 started,
If the market remains the way it is today over the next 3 years, which I don't think it's going to be like that. I
hope
think,
it is.
I think throughout 2021 and maybe early into 2022, we're still going to see. I don't know at what pace. I still think we're going to see a market emerging, getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And within that time period, I think it will hit $35,000. And if it continues throughout 2022, I see it hitting 40.
I had a discussion with someone in regards to what's going on in the stock market, cryptocurrency market, real estate market, just pick any market. Everything is booming. Everything is going through the roof. People are making money hand over fist, as they say. When the stock market is over 30,000, right? When Bitcoin is at 50 or 60,000, whatever it is today, right? People that have significant amounts of money, even though you can be well diversified and spread all over, be it real estate, but as you get older and you acquire more wealth, that's those places where you spread your funds out to, they start to grow and you start to get a little bit scared. In fact, investors are more scared when the market is kicking ass like it is today, thinking, oh my God, this
They get
will
anxious,
end,
they don't know where to put
and
it.
boom.
Yeah.
So now they start putting money into digital baseball cards, $250,000 for
Absolutely
a digital LeBron.
ridiculous.
LeBron, was it LeBron?
But here,
What was it?
An NFT just sold today for $69 million.
$69 million?
69 million digital art. Yeah.
It went from 20 million at a minute to 50, and then like right before.
Where did it sell for 50?
Christie's.
Christie's. It started at 100.
Fucking ridiculous. I'm sorry. It's like, but listen, nothing is ridiculous. If
You're right.
somebody's willing to
People are
pay
paying for
it,
fake. People are investing into fake money, right? Crypto.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
I think things today.
So, but let me finish my thought. I'm sorry before I lose it. So, as I'm talking to this guy, and he goes, so now we're taking our money and we're putting it in, diversifying even further, diluting our investments into passion investments. But he said, don't think for a second that just because I went out and bought myself 10 Rolexes just to throw in the back of my safe, I think that I'm going to make money on. To me, it's just a safe place to park this money. And I figured the worst case scenario, I can lose 10, 20%, but not lose more.
And a few of them I'm going to wear.
And I gave
enjoy
him,
it.
exactly, and I gave him an example, and I said, you know what this reminds me of? I had a friend of mine that he liked to gamble, right? And every time we would go on vacation, he would go and in the casinos, he would gamble hardcore. Win 20,000, lose 25,000, win 10,000, lose 10,000, right? He liked to gamble. He wasn't a degenerate gambler where he lost his house, but he liked to gamble and pretty heavy. Anytime he'd be in a casino, especially on an island somewhere, what he would do? He would be in a casino, he'd have a good night, he'd win 10 grand. Let's say he brought 10 grand or 20 grand to a gamble, right? He goes into the casino first night, wins 10 grand. He's saying to himself, okay, next day he goes into a Rolex store, buys a Rolex at retail.
Yeah. Smart.
Puts it in the safe, right? Because he's saying to himself, wait a minute, that 10 grand I could just easily give back at the casino.
Yeah.
He'll go back again with the original 20 grand. He may lose 10 grand. But every time he would win a significant amount of money, not to spend it again or
Yeah,
put it
yeah,
into
it's
something
very
else,
smart.
he'd go and buy that Rolex. Now, did he make
Well,
out?
that's some self-control there.
Yeah, tell me
some serious
about it.
self-control.
But and here's the thing: he did it at a time where he could have called me and bought that same Rolex that he spent 10 grand on for, let's say, 7 or 8.
No.
But he said, "Know what? It's right there. It's right then. It's free money. I'm putting it away. Otherwise, I'm going to give it back to the casino."
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, I think you can sort of tie that into this, where it is a full sense of investment, but at the same token, it is some of these toys, some of these watches are a decent place to park your money, but you just have to have an expectation that you're not going to be up on it, that you may actually be down on it, but not a whole lot. Better than cars, I guess. And that's really what it comes down to. All right, so last but not least, we have Watch Expert Appraises Celebrity Watches. Is this going to be the title of this video? Sounds like a title. All right, so the first thing I see is E40 on the screen and $100,000. Of course, they had to start down. They had to start out with a buzz down.
We're from this AP 100, like 100 plus, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Part of the iced out.
Okay, so that's an iced out, old style Royal Oak yellow gold. Remember that watch I posted on Instagram that said Royal Oak perfectly ruined?
Yeah.
I sold it to Elijah for $38,000. This is a newer model, 41 millimeter, many more diamonds, much more desirable model. So in gold, I don't see that watch. I don't know if I pay 45 for that even.
And these go anywhere from 90, you know what I mean? I have Rolexes.
5711 iced out. That watch is worth less
Iced out.
iced out than it is in Stanley, which is a damn shame. What would you pay for it? See, it's not fair to us to say
It's
that.
impossible. It's impossible to say because a lot of times what they do with these watches, like this 5711, is they'll actually take the movement out. They'll put a cheaper watch movement in there. They'll rebuild the case.
But they do that with the baguette ones, like with the
They do
chandeliers.
they do that with.
Yeah, I mean, assuming this was
a
a 5711 legit, just iced out, with box and papers.
you figure 25-30% less than what market
So
value is.
60, 65,000.
I'm gonna come to the big bang. This is one of my dumbest
DDG.
purchases, but it's kind of smart at the same time.
Oh,
All right, now we're talking your language.
now we're talking.
Let's see what he says first of all.
This is a Johann Blake 6101.
The black one, right?
Could be the black gray one.
This watch looks
the black
like
one.
a G-Shock. You know, a lot of people might look at this watch and be like, yeah, what is it? But if you look closely, I don't know if y'all got the zoom on it. Look at that. See that little piece in there? I don't know what it is, but I know it costs a lot.
What do you value that at today?
Almost 300,000.
Would you pay 300?
I wouldn't pay, but well, let's say market could fetch upwards of that. Let's say give it between 250 and 300.
Robert Downey Jr. comes in with.
You can't go wrong
It's
with
a
the Rolex.
Bamford.
Oh wait, what am I saying? Black Blake is over 300,000 today.
I got
for
myself
sure.
and but
Robert Downey Jr. comes
Yeah.
back with a Bamford watch department. There was a time where Bamford was fetched buku dollars. Now he said approximate price is $17,825. He converted that from British pounds, so he probably bought that at Bamford fully customized. The only company that really did really well for quite some time until they were bought out, and there was like a whole thing involved to do.
It's Rolex GMT Master 2 Ghost. Approximate price $17,825. That's a $10,000 watch.
I would go up because it's Bamford. I would go up to 12-14 actually.
I don't think so. Try to sell it for that price.
Yeah, I guess you're probably right. So Master 2 Ghost they call it.
I just
Yo
try to
Gotti.
spend most of my money on watches.
11.3.
So Yo Gotti's got a decent collection.
He does.
It's a decent mix between iced out and not.
This the big boy, you know what I mean? 240,000.
Way more than that today.
RM11030 gold.
Full gold.
He's saying $250,000. What would you pay for that today?
I would, pending condition, between 375 and 400.
So I guess he can make up for all the ice he put on the other good watches for. Let's see what else.
Probably old
That
video.
thing went up, you know what I mean? I spent 250. I think it went up a couple thousand now.
Couple thousand, couple of 100,000.
We got a
What is that?
That's an RM29 rose gold.
That's the biggest shocker to me. RM29, especially titanium, is like the dog. It was like the dog of all dogs because it was neither here or there size
To no
wise.
shape.
And
To no
it
shape.
went up. Like crazy. Let's see what he says.
It's another plain Richard Mille. It's like 100,000.
Where's it at now, Rose Gold?
It's more. Rose gold pending condition is between 135 to 150.
So yeah, he definitely made up on that.
I'm really into the Richard Mille brand because I think the watches keep going up.
You're right, Yo Gotti.
He's right. So in Yo Gotti's case, you did see a lot of iced out watches on which he would lose, but he made the right move by keeping those night iced out because I see a lot of.
He had an 1103 TPT in there, the red one. I wish he talked about that one.
What's that today?
Over 400.
400. So again, we've always said that look, there's nothing wrong with bust downs. Just buy what you like, right? If you like bust down watches, by all means. If it's your thing, by all means. But you can be smart about it, like Yo Gotti. I mean, it seems like E40 has nothing but iced out watches, and unfortunately, they're worth a lot less than what he paid for them. Should you ever decide to sell them, right? But if you do a healthy mix of what Yo Gotti did, where you have a few regular Richard Milles not iced out, that have gone up in value since he bought them.
It's so funny. Like Jay-Z's, as you can say, is a trendsetter for the hip hop culture, right?
Yeah.
He said in 1996, my favorite album of all time, Reasonable Doubt. He actually said in a song, "Those ain't Rolex diamonds. What y'all done to that?" And nobody followed suit. He didn't bust down since then, but they all did.
Look, he was a big trendsetter, and at the end of the day, look, a lot of the hip hop culture is about showing us, right?
100%,
Showing off,
100%.
and so on and so forth. And nothing shows off like a big blinged out, iced out bust down watch. And unfortunately, it's not the rapper's fault. It's the manufacturer's fault, because look, at the end of the day, there's not a whole lot of manufacturers out there that give you the option to have a watch such as that iced out. Companies finally started catching on, right? AP started making these baguette pieces. AP started making a lot of iced out pieces. But if you go back when I first started, if you wanted an iced out watch from Audemars Piguet, even the offshore wasn't even out yet. You had a Royal Oak iced out, And that was probably it. The rest of the diamond stuff was old lady stuff. So you didn't really have a whole lot of options out there. So what do you do when you don't have options? It's the same thing as people buying kits for their Lambos and Ferraris and things of that nature. It's
Absolutely hate that.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, if the manufacturer doesn't provide, I'll give you a perfect example.
Looks cool. Hate it.
Perfect example. 2022 Raptor that's coming out, right? The 2021 is coming out, and then they're going to have a souped up one in 2022, which is the one that I want. They already give you an option for 38-inch wheels. They already give you an option 38. They already give you an option for a lift kit because the manufacturer sees what people take those trucks and do with those trucks. So it's the same thing. Or straps. AP went out and brought out a whole lineup of camo straps. You know what I mean? Why? Why not? You think those guys don't pay attention to what happens in the aftermarket with all this stuff? So when this whole thing started, you didn't have a whole lot of options for really, really gaudy iced out watches, right? A baguette bezel, a diamond bezel. Rolex did, right? Yeah. But even still, there was no iced out 5711s out there. You know, there was no baguetted out 5980s out there. Or 5990s.
There are now.
There are now, but there's a reason for that. Because the manufacturer said, wait a minute, I'm going to throw on 50 grand worth of diamonds and charge you $500,000 for 5990, what do we get? Or $1 million, right? Everybody catches on, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the manufacturer has to start that trend. But I'm going to go with Yo Gotti's collection. I think he definitely beat those guys out. Maybe next time we'll do a few more celebrities.
We should do a video comparing rappers watches because there's a couple guys out there that have absolutely sick collections. Wow. Post Malone, Kevin Hart, although not a rapper, insane collection. Pharrell, Jay-Z, obviously.
Jay-Z. I mean, if we get into footballers, I mean that's also pretty insane.
Yeah, the soccer players or footballers as they call them.
Yeah.
LeBron has a crazy collection.
Well, LeBron has a LeBron watch.
Kevin Hart has a sick
collection. Honestly, LeBron can. If you don't know LeBron and you walk into his place,
I actually saw him on. I follow this one page on Instagram. I think it's like League Fits or something, where it shows whatever the NBA stars are wearing. He was wearing the OP41 in red.
Really?
Yeah, because he had like a red outfit, so he had the Rolex OP red.
Well, I'll tell you this: if anybody was to walk into LeBron's home without knowing who LeBron is, that's impossible, right? And he starts showing off your watch collection. If I don't know who he really is, and I walk in and he says, "Well, here's this tourbillon and here's a Skyline tourbillon. Oh, by the way, this watch was made for me. It carries my name, the Audemars Piguet LeBron James." You know, that to me would be most impressive. I don't care.
What about Jay-Z? Jay-Z's got this. Jay-Z probably has.
Jay-Z had the trilogy made for him.
Jay-Z the trilogy. He's got the. He's got a sapphire skull, Richard Mille. He's got a Grandmaster chime. He's got a Sky Moon. He's got it all.
Between him and his wife, they're worth over $1 billion.
Way over, yeah.
So I think we're done for today. I want to give again a big congratulations to you once again. I think kids are the best thing that can happen to anyone in this world, and you have no idea what's to come.
Oh, listen,
when they say the best is yet to come.
She was laying on my chest and she like opened her eyes and I looked down at her and I was like, I will never be able to say no to you.
She said, do you want a Porsche or a Ferrari? I'll put it on layaway. Cheers. Congratulations, Asians. Guys, thank you for sticking around. We'll see you next week.